Hi, welcome back. This is Elaine. Previously, I put up a video on step one, part A. Step one actually really would take about 3 videos to do adequately everything that needs to be looked at. But I think before you watch this video, I think it's really important that you watch the one before this, which is part A. So this is part B. We're still on step one, but we're gonna pretty much get everything done in this video. I absolutely encourage you, if you're really planning on doing the steps, to possibly get this workbook if you can, the 12 steps of adult children of alcoholics or dysfunctional families. It's a great workbook. It'll take you through all the questions, which I'm kind of doing really briefly. It's not enough to watch the video, to do the steps. You have to really go through it. And again, I encourage you to look online, because a lot of the lists of the steps, the laundry list, the solution, all those things, the promises, they're all easy to find online. But whether or not you can break each step down with the little questions, that I don't know what is online, and I'm not officially affiliated with any of that, so just want to put that out there again. There's also the big red book. It's a big book. It's like a Bible. So if you want to look at it, you absolutely are going to get a lot out of it. It's not very expensive, and you can order it on their website. So just to kind of recap a little bit, this is step one. Okay, my very high-tech thing here. We admitted we were powerless over the effects of, and I put a blank, so it could be alcoholism, codependency, a number of things. Look at the other videos and see what you feel like your family dysfunction was, or it could be many things, right? Typically people put in alcoholism, but it could be and you don't have to be the person who had that. Again, it's your parents or your caregivers. It may have crossed over into your life. But anyway, our lives had become unmanageable. So you could barely read that. Unmanageable. What I did in the first video, at least part A of this video, of this step, was to go over all the terms in there. I'll show you the one I used. It's a little bigger and a little better here. This was from the first video. And each of the terms that is in red there, through the questions you go through and you define them. Okay, so admitted has to do with coming out of denial. And powerlessness helps you to understand that as a child you were powerless, but then you don't need to be helpless as an adult. Effects of alcoholism, basically it's those 14 traits. That's another video, so look at the 14 traits, because that's really key to deciding if you should start this program. I mean, most people really should do this program, no matter what kind of family they come from. You might be surprised that how many of those 14 traits it might still affect you. And lives becoming unmanageable, basically it's hitting rock bottom. It's just getting to the point where you want to do the program. It's kind of that simple, actually. So so taking off where I left off in the book, and my visuals are gonna lack a little bit today, but that's okay, because it's been no frills from the very beginning to do this. So I want to find for you, okay, much nicer than what mine's going to be, but I'm going to show you mine because it's got a little more color. So what you do is you kind of write out a family tree. Okay, and there's you, and okay, and you maybe had kids, maybe not. You want to include them, because depending on how old they are, they might already be exhibiting some of those 14 traits themselves, which is a kind of hard thing to face, but it's true. your parents, as well as like step parents, because that's important, because you might have spent a lot of time, or even if you didn't spend time with your parents, whatever caretakers you had, that's appropriate. And then they had siblings. You know, I thought it would be a good idea to include my siblings and my cousins. Okay, I kind of did a little bit different. I went out to cousins and siblings, aunts and uncles, and I think I really learned a lot more. I mean, if you had a lot of aunts and uncles or a number of siblings, this is really, really eye-opening, because you begin to see people take different roles in families. You know, so you might have an uncle who was like the hero, but you had, you know, other ones that were, you know, more affected and not, and actually had to succumb to some sort of addiction. I didn't have to, but you know, it's life just tended that way. So anyway, you make yourself whatever you think is appropriate. You make a family tree. Now, mine's messy, and I didn't put any, of course, personal information here at all. I made, so it's kind of a mess. But anyway, I have, like, I actually color-coded. When I did this originally, about, gosh, it's been, has it been 10 years? Almost 10 years. Almost 10 years ago. I did it on the computer. It looked a lot better. And I did color code things. So if there was a parent with mental illness, for instance, I mean, that is absolutely important to put. That does contribute to this. If I had a parent who, or family member, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay. If I had a family member who had depression, or they could have more than one, or an alcoholic in the family. So what you would do is you would sort of trace that through your family tree. Okay, and I haven't like labeled those according to color, but like I have here, always drinking, for instance. I can put alcoholic, but I can always say spent money on, you know, on alcohol, or however I want to describe it. It's your tree. You get to do it how you want. But the idea is to go through, make the tree big enough that you can write characteristics. Now, some of the characteristics, this is, you know, again, you just have to look at what is the dysfunction in your own family, because that is what helps you understand that this is, these are patterns, and you want to short circuit those patterns. You want to stop them if you can. Hopefully, don't pass it on to your kids. If you do, have a meeting of the minds with your kids when they're ready, for them to understand the family patterns. Okay, I'm going to read to you some of them. For instance, your family labels is they might have been alcoholic. That's obvious. Used drugs, were enablers. They helped other people get their alcohol or made excuses for them. Religious. Now that basically just means that they use religion as like punishment or perfectionism. Undependable, heavy debt, worried a lot, perfectionist, chronically ill, hypochondriac, pill popper, great cook. That's an interesting one, but it means like everybody else, that person maybe took care of everybody else and didn't take care of themselves. Sexually aggressive, not safe, a gigolo, violent, grabbed or wrestled inappropriately, thief, argumentative, people pleaser, martyr, loner. Okay, so whatever you want your list to be. Again, I highly recommend you get a book like this, and it goes through everything very, very specifically. So, all right, once you have made your tree, you know, everything really hinges a lot upon the 14 characteristics, because you're kind of looking to see, you're looking to see what the effects of alcoholism are. For instance, what traits your family members have, and what the conclusion you're going to reach is that you could not possibly have escaped some sort of dysfunction Okay, if you really look at your family pattern and it just keeps repeating. So for instance, you might find that there are alcoholics in your family. Well, who marries those alcoholics? Okay, is it a people pleaser? Is it a martyr? Is that person typically depressed, and are they codependent? Is there are there those patterns? Are there suicides in your family? Is there depression, obviously, in your family? And if you are looking and you see these patterns repeating themselves throughout your family tree, and even impacting you as well as an adult child, making you have to react and cope in ways that you shouldn't have had to, do. Anyway, that's the value of looking at the tree. Because I think what we do is we tend to think that we're all alone in it, and we're just like something's wrong with us. And until we really look at our family history, we don't understand. If we had parents that were perfectionists, for instance, we might feel the fear of authority. We might feel that we've got to make everything perfect. We want to be perfectionists ourselves, or maybe we completely rebel and just let everything go to heck. So looking at the family tree kind of helps. You might see like your cousins, your brothers and sisters taking on different roles, but whatever they were, maybe dysfunction. So that's the thing that you want to do, is do it really comprehensively with that tree. Label it, label it, label it. Now, again, we'll get to this in just a minute, but this is the stage where it's okay. I don't want to call it a pity party exactly, but in a way it's okay to do that, because in the first step, you've got to get this figured out. You've really got to sit down and spend time and look at your family members. If a tree is not, working for you, it's certainly better than that. But, just make a list, maybe generationally, of family members and dysfunction. And this isn't to make them look bad or rat on them or anything, because you could just burn this later if you want. But it's to understand just what the effects are and how they filter down. Okay, so enough on that. Please make the tree, make your labels if you can, and be as specific and detailed as you feel is helpful. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of this. Well, you've labeled your tree. We already talked about that. So be sure to fill it in as much as you can. Look for the patterns. So you will see patterns. You'll begin to see that certain people marry certain people, or there's a connection between parents in the family and then the next generation down and what they do. Same thing with siblings. Siblings tend to take on different roles. So look for that. Look for within a family, especially could be looking at your cousins, for instance, which one went on to be the hero, the scapegoat, the loner, the rescuer. Doesn't have to be the hero, actually. Okay, so you're looking for those patterns, and who those people tend to marry. What do you tend to do? As a result of your dysfunction, who do you partner with? Do you partner with people with the same sorts of things? As did you marry your mother or your father? What happened? What are your labels? What did your family members, we're getting kind of more personal here, what did your family members say? We'll just say in their worst moments. Maybe they're not so terrible, but they call you names. Were you like the princess or the little prince, or were you lazy? Or were you, you were not very smart, or dummy? What did people call you? Daddy's little girl, mama's boy. What were your labels? Because sometimes this is like what's meant to reduce you. This is what makes it hard to get out of dysfunction, because we believe in the labels. So to the degree that we're labeling this, okay, there are labels for you too, and you realize that these are things that are said again and again. Oh, you're always screwing up, or it's, of course, something goes wrong, it's, you did it again. So look at your labels. So on your tree, you're gonna have to make a little bit of room. There's you can't write anything in that box, see, and I put a little happy face. But you can always have something accompanying this family tree. Discuss this family tree with yourself, and if you have a sponsor, I think it's worthwhile. Okay, how does your family story differ from reality? Now, growing up, your parents and your family members, your aunts and uncles, your grandma, grandpa, they all want to protect the family, or usually, and that's okay. In fact, you have to have a certain amount of feeling that your family's okay or safe growing up, even though maybe you know better. And sometimes some of the stories, they help you feel pride, etc. So for instance, maybe you had a family member who was a war hero, so that's like an important part of the story. Your so-and-so uncle, grandpa, somebody went to fought in a war and won medals or something like that. Or so-and-so was a great beauty queen and won contests, and your family immigrated during the Great Depression and went through all these difficult things and succeeded, in maybe they came to California like my parents did. So anyway, there's a story, right? And usually the story's a little bit better than reality, or it's cherry picking, the reality. So, I mean, even though you're putting all the negative labels here, the family does have an official story which says that, we've done pretty good. And you know what? You can't take away from those good things. I mean, that's not the point of this. It's just to be negative and rag on everything. But what you have to confront is that, how does your family story differ from reality? Because we want to come out of denial, you see, and that was the point here, that we admitted we were powerless over the effects. Okay, we admitted, we come out of denial, because otherwise why would we do a program like this? Okay, so we know that there's a family history that everybody talks about, and there's funny stories, and there's brave stories and heroic stories and a little bit of fame perhaps, but then on the other side there's the secret stuff. And sometimes we just hear about the secret stuff. We don't know for sure, because families like to keep secrets. But I think it's even appropriate to go ahead and put, it's alleged that, or I've heard a rumor that. Just get that down on paper. Again, protect yourself. Be careful. But, and if you go to an ACA meeting, if at some point we're able to meet again, these are stories that you should be able to share in a group. If you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. And be sure to use, pseudonyms if you really feel, uncomfortable. But these are the stories we share. We share stories about the reality of our family, or the contrast between, hey, this is the story that everybody thinks is fun or brave or entertaining, and then this is the story that's the reality, or at least the parallel story underneath it. Okay, so one of the hardest things, I think, is when we look again at the laundry list. That's another video, so go back to the laundry list, because this step 1 asks you how many of the ACA traits you have out of the 14. So when I looked at the list, it was like 8 years ago. When I looked at this list, I found that I fit all those, like all 14. So, I mean, you'll find a lot of people will relate to all 14 of the laundry list steps. So as you do that, I suggest you write everything down. Which traits, go through the traits and talk about them, and each one and how they fit you, and maybe how you inherited. I don't like to say inherited. let's make it clear that when we talk about family, we don't have to believe that these things are inherited. Okay? I guess there's a sense of it, kind of, you know. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about nature versus nurture here, but certainly the nurturing has gone haywire at some point. And I think we should focus more on that than on it's just my fate, you know. So and so was a alcoholic and so am I, or so and so had mental, especially this one, mental illness. And then we begin to think it's our fate to have mental illness or to pick up a drink. And that is like really, really, really destructive, to believe that fate is what decides these patterns in our family. Please don't fall for that. Those things did get passed down, but a lot of it is what we were saying here. Let's go back. The family story, the labels, okay? Things are passed down to us mostly by being told these things. So we have to absolutely understand that it's in our power to break the patterns. We want to say, here's our tree. You know, here's these things: alcoholism, depression, mental illness, abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, perfectionism. We want to say that we're breaking those patterns. So and I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's so easy to as a parent, okay, to go on and say stupid things to our kids, or to act in ways that are out of control or unmanageable, that just cause a repetitive cycle in our kids. And then hopefully, you know, then they have children. And so we think, okay, I have to stop this, and we have to quit talking about things being about fate, especially when we're talking about suicide. Okay, I want to, you know, just kind of really like stop. Let's talk about this. If members of your family have been suicidal, and somebody says to you, oh, you're just like so-and-so who committed suicide, okay? Or don't do such and such. It could even be a warning, like, don't do this because so-and-so is suicidal. You don't have to listen to the labels, and you don't have to think this is your fate. This is really a tough situation, because in families with a lot of dysfunction, that suicide is one of those characteristics, especially cases of sexual abuse. It is very, very difficult to overcome the feelings. And another thing is that part of what we're going to do is decide what we can change and what we can't change. Part of what we want to do in this program is take responsibility rather than blame, even though, and we've talked about that, sure, you were a kid and it's not your fault, absolutely not your fault, but it is your responsibility as an adult to make your life better. I mean, if no one's coming to save you, if it's you that has to save you, you have to get past the blame. People deserve blame, yes, especially in the cases of sexual abuse. It's a terrible thing. Hopefully those people had there was some sort of thing that they had to pay for that, having done that to you. But you have to be able to say, in spite of all the pain and all that somebody has done to me, I can break the pattern. And when somebody decides, you know, to take their own life, it might be that they believe too much those family traits were hereditary, or they might have believed in fate, you know, and fate, it's just not a helpful thing, because just even if in your religion you believe in fate, okay, fine, but please, just for this program, let's act like you have control over these things. Okay, so, all right. Alrighty, let's look at the last one. The last one is to say your ACA affirmations. I always run out of room. ACA affirmations. After each of these steps, there's like a spiritual practice, a meditative type thing that you do, because this is hard. This work is hard. Facing these things is hard. When I went through the steps, I was, crying. I had denied all these things that they had affected me. I just thought, oh, look at me. I've succeeded. I'm married. I have a family. I have, kids. I went to college. All these trappings of success, and things did fall apart in spite of all these great, terrific things that happened, supposedly, because that was all just a veneer. Inside, it was still this child. And I had to do the work because I knew that life didn't feel right. Sure, there's hardship in life, and sure and sure some people have it worse than we do or whatever, but why just settle? Why just settle for dysfunction? Why just settle for responses to dysfunction that are not the best kind of coping? Okay, why not learn skills that help you get out of those patterns? Okay, so enough talk. All right, at the end of this, in the workbook, I'm referring to the workbook, and boy, so really get the workbook because it's so much more complete than what I've done here. All right, the meditation exercise has as its, it says you should find a quiet place and keep your cell phone off and look at these affirmations and breathe and close your eyes and let whatever thoughts come to you, and then write in a notebook. Keep a journal. Okay, so here are the ones, and I'm not going to sit here and meditate with you today, but I think if you can do this, again, please take the time to be alone with your thoughts and not have a lot of noise and things in the background. Affirmations. And these are not necessarily positive ones, because we're at the point of admitting, getting out of denial. So the affirmations are some of them do not seem like positive. I am powerless over the effects of alcoholism and family dysfunction. Now, powerless just meant that you came to that point where, like, I've tried everything, it's not working. I'm at the rock bottom, whatever. But this is an affirmation because it says, I'm admitting this. I can't seem to get better. Okay. I am powerless over the laundry list traits. So that's the effects of the family dysfunction. The 14 traits. Go back and look at the video. It talks about all 14. That's the long one. My long video. Okay. So you're kind of powerless over them. As a kid, you learned these behaviors that were not the best behaviors ultimately for you, and you're powerless over those traits. My life is unmanageable when I focus on others rather than myself. So what we do tend to do is look at other people, and at least I'm not as bad as that person, or I'm going to do everything I can to help that person, or I'm going to rescue this person, or I'm going to blame that person. None of these are good responses. We have to understand that makes it unmanageable because we don't put the responsibility on ourselves. Okay, so focusing on others in this work, except for, of course this is focusing on others, but this is your private thing. This is not acting out and always having to fix people or, intrude on their boundaries or let them intrude on your boundaries. Okay, I did not cause my parents' addiction or dysfunction. This is important because we do blame ourselves. Sometimes our parents blame us. If I hadn't had you, I would have gone on and finished college. If I didn't have you, we probably wouldn't fight so much. We would have been like getting along really great. Or I didn't even plan on having you. You were an accident, so, or you drove me to drink. So we have to understand that we didn't cause those problems. We didn't ask to be, that sounds bad, ask to be born, but we were born into these families. We became humans on this planet, and our goal as humans on this planet is to function and to have joy and to do other things. And other people don't have the right to tell us that we caused their dysfunction, because that means they're not taking responsibility for themselves, just like you want to do. You want to take responsibility for yourself. You have to understand that when other people put this stuff on you, these labels, I blame you, that they're not taking responsibility. Now, don't focus on the fact that they're not taking responsibility. Just let it go. Like, okay, they said that, but I'm not taking that seriously. Again, you're going to do this in meditation, not the way I'm doing it with you here. All right, my feelings and thoughts are separate from the thoughts of my parents and my family. Again, there's that thing where we think we've inherited the thoughts. We think that our thoughts aren't important because they're not as important as some other person's thoughts in the family, or we have that family reality and the family story, which are different. And so we have to look at ourselves without that garbage. Okay. And I can stop trying to heal or to change my family through my current relationships. I can stop trying to change others. Big one. Again, we try to change others because we think it'll make our lives better, or it just distracts us from our own lives. When we do that, we're never going to get our own stuff figured out. So, anyway, okay. I can stop condemning myself without mercy. Most important thing, and this is why this is at the end of these affirmations, is we need to get to a point of forgiveness of ourselves. I mean, at some point we want to forgive others too, but maybe first we just have to forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves for accepting the labels. Forgive ourselves for adopting these dysfunctional mechanisms for coping. Forgive ourselves for trying to fix people, because when you go through this, you're like, oh yeah, I'm such a dummy. Yes, that's true. That character traits me. I'm, my family's this way. And it seems so bad. But this is saying that you can stop condemning yourself. Please forgive yourself, because the idea of the program is to come out feeling good about yourself and come out like checking yourself. When you get one of those thoughts, you start learning to go, oh, no, not my fault. Not my fault. Not going to blame myself. I mean, we do accept what's our fault, but I'm saying like this dysfunction, this history, this tree, you got to forgive ourselves for our dysfunction, because how could we have helped it with looking at our family tree? Okay, and finally, I am a valuable person. Now, I remember a few times in my life where something happened that made me feel bad about myself. And I would just repeat, it's like really simple. I am a good person. I'm worthy to be loved. I'm a lovable person. I matter. I forgive myself. I love myself. I might not have even believed those things. All those things I just said. Maybe I didn't even believe them, but deep down, I knew that they were true. And that's what you're facing in step 1. You're facing all this dysfunction, how it's in your family, how you picked it up, what labels you were given, what labels other people had, what messages were you constantly being told as a kid, and how this just made things out of control in your life and unmanageable. But ultimately, at the end of this step, you want to be able to sit down and say, I am a good person. I am lovable. I do have value. My life does matter. I am worthy of this effort that I'm going to go through with the 12 steps. So that concludes step 1. I would say that if you looked at the 2 videos, part A and this one, part B, I think that's, and if you stop, again, pause, take notes, write, make yourself a tree, go through the laundry list, the 14 traits, preferably get a book or look online for this, okay? Look for like workbooks, see if there's something online. There's a little tree, I don't, you can't see because it's very shiny and I'm looking right into the sun here, but this book is kind of cool because on one side it talks about, it's labeled all these things in the tree. Mistrust, procrastination, perfectionism, isolation, self-centeredness, all kinds of things. You know, this is a different tree. This is a tree, it's just a pretty visual. But on the back are all these positive things: trust, feeling, maturity, joy, service, action, self-love, friendship, accepting mistakes, honesty, accepting help, reparenting, integration, and emotional sobriety. Big change from this tree to that. That's where we begin to see that our tree, we can grow a new tree. You know, we can make, people will look at you. When you finish these 12 steps, I'm telling you this is true. People will look at you and they'll say, something's changed about you. You're different. Like, I remember you, kind of almost as a left-handed compliment, but I remember you were kind of a bummer. Or I remember you were like running around trying to fix everybody, or, you know, taking on all these hopeless causes and stuff. And I mean, like maybe spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. But you seem different. You seem confident. There seems like lights coming off of you. You smile more. That's what you're going to notice when you finish these steps. That's why it's worth doing this. You'll be kind of a changed person if you take it seriously. So I will be doing another video, and I think it's going to cover the next 2 steps. Yeah, 2 and 3. And those are both about, I'll give you a little bit of preview. Okay, I'm taking too long looking through here, but we're going to be going through step 2, which is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This is confronting the idea of God, of a creator, or of a higher power, of a higher consciousness. Again, 2 and 3, very important, even if you are agnostic or an atheist. Definitely, if you are a believer, it's easier for you on this step, but it's really important to do this because this is sort of like taking all the weight of the stuff from step 1 and going, oh, here, take it, okay? And even if it's just metaphorical, you want to do that. So you're kind of handing it all over, and then let's see if we get to step 3. Yeah, step 3, I'm going back, and made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. So, and that one, what I'm going to do in those 2 steps is I'm really going to talk about our historical thinking about God, because even if we are like, if we're a believer or we're atheist or agnostic, we have an opinion about God, whether you think God exists or not, and that sometimes informs our dysfunction too. I think we need to think about the higher power as a loving, as a forgiving deity. Because if we think of God as somebody who's gonna get you, you know, and he's gonna punish you, lightning's gonna strike, it's really hard to turn it over to a God that is punitive and mean. So we'll talk about that in the next video, step 2 and 3. And I hope this one was helpful to you. I hope that you take something from it that is good for you in your life. And I'll see you in the next video, and have a wonderful day and a prosperous future. Thank you.